Hello everyone, I hope you're well. Today I wanted to touch on Learning Unit 3, Theme 1, which is on families and households. And what I'm hoping to do in this recording is to define family, explain the difference between family and households, examine the various theories of household and families, analyze how different theories of the family provide different outlooks on families, as well as discuss the importance of intergenerational relationships. So, as we're getting right into it, when we are talking about families, we have firstly, we have families and we also have households. So, what I'd like to get into first is the definition of household. So, when we are talking about households, we are talking about people who live in the same house. That's the first one. And there's also people who contribute to that particular household, but who do not reside in that particular household. So we're talking about parents who probably work overseas or just out of town, but they are financially contributing towards the household. So that is our definition as sociologists of what households are. And then we also have families. So, at the core of all definitions of the family is the parent child bond, or the child between, or rather, a bond between adult members of the family. So, in our different types of households, we have family households, non-family households, single person rather household, stretched households. And in our different definitions of the family, we have about nine different types of families. So all of these can be found on page 87 to page 89 in your textbooks. So when we're talking about the different families, we need to acknowledge the different societies that families evolved to what we see families to be today. So the first type of society that existed was the hunter and gatherer societies, which was small groups of people moving and searching for food and water. This is how family, or rather what family was known to be. Smaller groups of people moving together, searching for food and water. Those who hunted would hunt, usually that would be men. Those who gathered would gather, usually that would be women staying at home with their children and so on. That was the definition of family in the hunter and gatherer societies. And then in the primitive horticultural societies and the advanced horticultural societies, the idea of families changed in such a way that there was a lot of agricultural activities and also the division of labor between men and women. So now that means the separation of families then started to come about in this case, where in the hunter and gatherer societies there were more close knit families, but in the primitive horticultural and advanced horticultural societies, there was more of a separation of families as a result of the agricultural activities and also the division of labor between men and women. And then we have the agrarian society, where there was a production of food with the use of animals and machinery, and now what we see as being the industrial society, which is the production of food with the use of technology, which has allowed us to move around the world, leaving our families behind. So the idea of family is stretched in the sense that we have families all over the world, even because of how we've been afforded the luxury, if I could say that, or rather the opportunity to have to travel and have families all over the world. But when we're talking particularly about South African families, we find that we see a lot of South African families or rather we see a lot of these different definitions of families. We could have nuclear family, extended family, assisted family, survival kinship networks, and all these different other types of families existing simultaneously because of just how diverse we are as a country and as a society. So that goes to show that we are having these different ideas and different understandings and different perspectives of what family is. But what we've seen more and more of is that there exist, or rather, there is a higher rate of single parented households in South Africa now. And I always ask my students, why do you think that is? So I want you guys to also just think about, why is it that we're seeing more and more single parented households in South Africa? Could that mean that there is now a new society that's developing in our country as a result of whatever it is? But I just want you to think about that question for a bit while we are going into the different theories of families and households. The different theories rather are structural functionalism, the conflict perspective, feminist, as well as the rational choice and social exchange theory. So all of these different theories will argue the concept of family differently, starting with the structural functionalist who will believe that the nuclear family is the only true type of family, and I will tell you the reasons for that. So it says here that Murdoch's definition of the nuclear family is two adults of opposite sex, socially sanctioned relationship, and at least one child. And it is indeed, according to the structural functionalists, the true form of family because they are able to perform these four functions. So according to the functionalists, the family is supposed to perform four functions, which is sexual regulation, economic tasks, reproduction, as well as education. So if a family can perform these four different functions, then they are seen as the only true form of family. So structural functionalism in its original form add to our understanding of the family, and these sociologists operated within a first world setting. And in South Africa, we are uncertain whether nuclear family exists in all racial groups. It goes back to the point that I was saying, that we are seeing this huge change in families where we are having more of different forms of families, especially now in a society where we are allowing for polygamous relationships. We are allowing for polyamorous relationships. We are allowing for different forms of families. So all of that will feed our understanding of what family is, or rather what families are in our society. And unfortunately, we are seeing less and less of nuclear families in South Africa. So does that mean families are not performing their full functions as what the structural functionalists argue? That is a question that you would need to answer. And then we have the conflict theory, which looks at both the macro and the micro effect of families, right? So when you're looking at the conflict perspective, I know that the first thing you would think of is Marx, which would be 100% correct, because they're looking at how families bring about some form of inequalities in not only the smaller group of individuals, which is the family, but also in the society, because whatever inequalities that exist within that small group of people, which is the family, will translate in what happens in the society in itself. So when we are looking at the conflict perspective on a micro level, it goes to say here that conflict theory works on the understanding of triads: mother, father, child, and sibling diads. And with that, what inequalities exist between those few members in the family. But also, in as much as that is the case, there's still this understanding that women are being oppressed within a family setting, because a mom or a mother is seen as a person who has to do all the hard labor, the chores, the cooking, the the cleaning, the laundry, and all of these things. But all of these things are unpaid labor. It's almost expected of a woman to do all of these different chores. But at the same time, there are people who can be hired who will then get paid for that same amount of work that they do. So, which means that it allows for exploitation, because you are not getting paid as a woman to do all of these different jobs, but you are then, it's expected of you to do it, not because of anything, but because of how society was structured, which actually speaks to the patriarchy that allows, or rather that exists in our society. So the different things that the conflict perspective looks at, goes to show that they do not actually agree with the nuclear family, because they believe that the nuclear family allows for exploitation and allows for inequality in the different families, because a woman has to do all of these different jobs, whereas a man doesn't. And because of that, patriarchy exists, patriarchy is being promoted, and with that, there isn't going to be any way of social change if we continue with a nuclear family, or rather a traditional nuclear family. And the feminist theory will also argue the same thing, but we'll look at it from a holistic point of view. Then we have the rational choice and social exchange theory, the life course approach as well. All of these can be found in your textbooks. So please do let me know if this was helpful. If you still have a lot of questions, please do let me know as well. And that is it from me. The next time we have a recording, it will be based on Learning Unit 3 on religion. And yeah, I'll see you then. Enjoy the rest of your day. Bye, guys.